Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our webinar today, Doing Data Right. I'd like to start by thanking Burning Glass and Kelly Bailey for joining us. Burning Glass is a pioneer in solutions that help clients across the world to understand people in their careers in order to deliver superior workforce and marketplace insight. We are delighted to be joined by Kelly Bailey today, who is the Director of Partnerships and Alliances for Burning Glass Technologies Education and Career Advancement Services Division. She's been working with real-time labor market data in the education market for over 8 years. Along with spearheading the fast-growing education division at Burning Glass, she has also presented at many conferences and events. Her goal is to put job market data in the hands of educators, students, and parents to help schools develop programs that lead to jobs and to help students and parents make better informed decisions on education and career pathways. We are delighted to have Burning Glass as a partner of Converge and really excited for you to ask some great questions today and learn more about how you can leverage this type of information to help develop academic offerings that will help you to grow your enrollment across your colleges. Kelly?
Thank you so much, Anne. So happy to be here with you guys, and thank you for joining us on hopefully a warm and sunny afternoon wherever you are. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Now, I know this format doesn't necessarily lead us to much of open talking, but for all of you who are somewhat familiar with this GoToWebinar software, there is a little chat log box on your panel here where you can type in questions or messages, and we'll be keeping an eye out for those. We may hold questions just till the end, but please, as you think of them, please go ahead and type those in and we will keep an eye on it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So ahead of the webinar, I believe it was last week, we actually posted a blog regarding this particular list that you see here, what I referred to as the top 10 innovative uses of real-time labor market data in education. For those of you who may not have seen it, I just wanted to quickly run through this because although I provided it as a sneak peek to the webinar today, it really is an outline in a sense of what we'll be talking about today. And these are really in no particular order, so I didn't want you to think that this was a 1 through 10 in that particular order, but it is aligning programs with workforce needs, identifying employer partners and or strengthening current employer partnerships, ensuring students are skilled for current employment, supporting grant proposals, better informed career and training decisions, spending marketing dollars for online programs more effectively, tweaking online programs based on location needs, identifying gaps and linking to relevant training, developing marketing materials for degrees and programs, and lastly, identifying next step opportunities for students. There are actually 5 examples, but 4 from some of our partner schools that I will be sharing with you today, what I find to be some of those innovative uses of this particular type of data. Those 4 partners that you can see here are University of Maryland University College, James Madison University, the University of Alabama, their Continuing Studies Department, and Northeastern University. And the 5th example that I'll be showing is actually out of one of the reports we published earlier this year. Oh, we went the wrong way. Let's try that again. All right. So normally at this point, the first question I get is, what kind of data does Burning Glass provide? So let's start there and let's just go through that quickly so that you know what we'll be referencing in all of the following examples. Burning Glass analyzes resumes and job postings. For these particular examples, we're going to be talking about the analysis of our job posting data. So our job posting data is coming from over 38,000 websites. And I just put a little breakdown in here because I usually do get the question, so what kind of sites are you searching from? A little over 75% of the sites are direct employer websites, so any employer that you can think of out there. And slightly over 50% are sites that are producing 20 or fewer jobs. And really the reason I mention that is that we do not only pull job postings from large job boards or staffing companies or things like that. I mean, we're really focusing on not only direct employer sites, but also small and medium-sized businesses. Now, in terms of how we're actually reading the data out of these job postings to make this actionable information, see if I can get down to the next slide. There we go. This is all based on artificial intelligence. So the way that that works is that we've basically trained our system to read the job posting data in a very granular detail. There's actually over 70 different data elements within a job posting that our technology can read. So it's things like skills, education requirements, certifications, the actual job titles, the employers, the locations, just to name a few. So now that you have a little background on where this data is coming from, and again, please feel free to ask any questions if I wasn't clear, I wanted to jump into an example here of a report we published regarding liberal arts graduates earlier in the year. The idea around this report, and I'm sure you've heard it all lately as well, is that there is so much information right now, or I think so much focus from students and parents on their return on investment in terms of education. You know, if I'm sending my student to this school, what does that mean? Are they going to get a job? And there's a lot of pressure right now on liberal arts schools in particular. And how does that particular degree lead to a job? So what we did is we actually looked at the skills that a standard liberal arts undergrad student, I should say, graduates with in relation to the jobs that were available out there for those particular skill sets. And it turns out, and this report, by the way, for anyone who wants to take a peek at the whole thing, is available on our website. It turns out that for standard liberal arts grads, there were about 1 million job openings last year. And I have an example on the second slide here. They're pretty typically recruiters, administrative positions, assistants, store managers, account representatives, things like that. I'll come back to the slide in just a second. But what we looked at was if we added on different bundles of skill sets, how would that change their marketability in the job force? And basically what we found out that we looked at the areas on the bottom of this slide here. So we added in skill set bundles for marketing, sales, business, social media, graphic design, data analysis, computer programming, and IT networking. And what we determined was that not only did the number of jobs almost double that were available to those grads with these added skill sets, but they also had an average salary premium of $6,000. Now that means a lot for someone first, getting in their first job. And the interesting part about these little bundles of skill sets that we were adding in was that it was something you could gain in either an internship, it could potentially be a minor, it could just be coursework, what have you, that student could go along with, or that would be going along with their liberal arts degree that would open up these new positions. And we just threw in this example here in regards to some of the marketing skills and what types of jobs that might look like for a student with those additional skills. Now I've added in a few things here as well, which just were a few examples there. I did some examples for each skill set bundle that I mentioned, just with some of those core skills, and also the number of job postings. Again, we did this research for the year 2013. So the number of job postings that were open and available for liberal arts grads with these particular additional skill sets. Within the report itself, we actually listed out each particular bundle and all of the skills associated with those particular bundles. So feel free to take a peek at that. We can definitely send that along as some follow-up information after the webinar. All right, so moving on to our first partner school example here, which is from the University of Maryland University College. Now, I know this is a little small for your eyes out there. I tried to just fit it in on one screen, but it is an infographic that UMUC posted on their website as a marketing piece for their data analytics program. So, of course, they wanted to capitalize on big data. Of course, it seems to be a really interesting buzzword. It's always in the news now. And how could they relate that back to their data analytics program? So within this infographic, they utilized job demand data related to big data jobs, which of course then related to students' potential interest in their data analytics program. And so here they pulled out data not only from Burning Glass, they have access to our Labor Insight tool, but they also pulled some data just from the Bureau of Labor Statistics or in some cases some of the state of Maryland data, so they could put together this really nice marketing piece. And I love this example for schools out there that are really trying to come up with new and different ways on how to market their programs to students, and again, what that really equates to for those students going through that program. And so here, I'm not sure if you can see all of this, but they actually were including the top companies hiring in data analytics. They were including some of the top skills in demand, some of the top regions. And I am, of course, happy to include the link over to this particular infographic for any of you that would like to see that. But you know, with real-time labor market data, this isn't the only topic that you could create this type of infographic on. So it can be any of the, you know, cybersecurity is a really big, big industry of interest at the moment. STEM jobs in general. So there's a lot of different industries or different types of occupations that you could create infographics like this. Our second example from a partner institution that I'd like to share with you comes from James Madison University. Now, James Madison and I presented this particular material earlier in the year, so I happen to be lucky enough to have a couple of their slides from this particular presentation that I will share with you guys. I find this example to be really, really interesting. James Madison received a grant, I believe, from their state council. And this particular grant was in relation to getting students that did not graduate from their traditional university back into the continuing studies group to finish off that particular degree. And what they did was they actually, and I'm sort of going this backwards, I'm sharing with you on the screen right now a sample of a postcard that they were sending out targeting these students. They were sending out very specific targeted messages to these students. And on the back of this particular report, or excuse me, on the back of this particular postcard, they included some information in relation to where that student was living, what jobs would be available to that student if they finished their undergraduate degree, and where they could find more information about it. So I'm going to run you through some of their information here and then share with you also a letter that they had sent out to students. Again, a very, very targeted message to a specific set of students. So again, I mentioned that they received this grant from their state council, and they had to first figure out, okay, how do we know what students not complete a degree? And the reason that I'm sharing this all with you, by the way, is that although it is in relation to using real-time labor market data, there are other data sources that can be used, an example like this, and I just want you to be aware of those particular data sources as well. So they first off got information from their registrar on a particular set of years, so in this case it was 95 to 2008, those who had 30+ credits but did not complete the degree. They were looking for as much information on those students as possible to obviously narrow down where they were living at that time. And one of the issues that they came across was, okay, how do we know if these students didn't complete this degree somewhere else? So that was one question that came up through this process. And where they went to find that information was the National Student Data Clearinghouse. So again, for those of you that are not familiar with that particular set of data, a great set of data to determine, where students have actually graduated from. I don't know all the ins and outs of students that transfer, but I hear those percentages are increasing. So it is always good to know if you were going to go along the route of this particular type of marketing or project, that you did know that if they've completed that degree somewhere else. And that's when they put together, put all this information together. They utilized our data just to determine those jobs that they could use in this specific marketing message, and they created this wonderful, beautiful postcard that they were sending out from their president. And let me see here, I'm going to actually just pop up out of these slides for 1 second to show you the letter. Bear with me 1 second here. And this, which let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. And then they were also sending out a letter as a follow-up, showing them that within, again, this letter was depending on where that student was located, but information about, we know you haven't completed and you're so close and we want you to complete, and how many jobs are out there for someone with that type of degree, and how they can help. They were actually hosting information sessions, by the way, and they did this regionally, depending on where the students were, so that those students could come in and gather more information. Again, happy to share this particular letter with you. And just going back to the slides here, I wanted to share with you some of the outcomes data that they had on this particular project, which it doesn't seem like a ton, but it was a very small piece, a very small number of students that they were targeting. So about 120 students responded, and about 45 enrolled or re-enrolled. And within the period of that 1-year grant, 6 students graduated. But they're still getting requests coming in just from this one thing. So they're going to be doing this project again, which is I think it's a great idea. Another example that I'd like to share with you that I don't happen to have a picture of, but it is just such a wonderful example, is from the University of Alabama's Continuing Studies group. So the University of Alabama offers a distance, and actually I'm going to switch this over just to their website quickly so that at least you have a visual. So the University of Alabama offers a distance learning, or I think it's called distance learning. They have a distance learning department, I should say, where they offer a lot of their online programs. When any student completes this program, they receive this really beautiful, it's like a marble paperweight as a gift. And with their diploma, I believe they received this gift. And along with this gift, they received certificates that are coupons for classes from their continuing education department. And those coupons can be used either by that student or they can pass them along to a friend. And I think it's something like $100 off their first course. But they use this tactic to really get students to consider continuing their education through Bama as opposed to going along to another institution. I know the folks there have been kind enough to offer to send other institutions samples of this nice little plaque, but there are other schools out there that do something similar where they will target their undergraduate students and just letting them know whatever they can do to include, and I'm sure you can think of some nice little gifts to include to your students on that are graduating, but what a great way to keep them at the institution and continuing that education. And they also use our data to make sure that their programs and the degrees that they're offering will lead to jobs. So, that's a nice added bonus there, but they, I think they do a really great job of keeping their students. And the last example that I would like to share with you, and I only have one little slide, but I'm going to talk through this a little bit more because we have this wonderful partnership with Northeastern University. And this here on the slide is just one example of the way that they have used our labor market data. But for those of you that do not or have not kept up lately with Northeastern, they have had some amazing growth in the last couple of years. They really very much so wanted to focus on keeping in line with employer needs and really creating degrees and programs that met those needs. But above and beyond that, they were very focused on their marketing of their online programs as well. And in some of the examples that I had shown on that original slide with the 10 innovative uses of labor market data, I would say a few of them fall in line here, but in particular, they do a wonderful job at understanding what are hotbeds for particular jobs that would fit a program, an online program that they offer. So what I mean by that is they will look nationwide. Let's say they offer, going back to that example, or I guess we could technically even use this biotechnology example, but they will look locationally where there are a lot of employers that are offering positions in biotechnology, or it could be in data analytics, or whatever example you'd want to think of. And they'll focus on actually spending marketing dollars in the regions to those, prospective students, because of course they know that the chances of those prospective students either being employed at one of those organizations or potentially gaining employment at one of those organizations after completing a degree, an online degree, is much greater. They've also even looked at how they can tweak an online program based on the location. So as an example, if you look at the skills and requirements of software engineers in the San Jose area, they look very different from, let's say, software engineers in the Chicago area. San Jose software engineers are much more project management oriented than in Chicago, and different things like that. But there are plenty of ways to look at labor market data, or what employers are looking for in terms of skill sets, in terms of education, that you could actually tweak that particular online program based on that area. And it doesn't have to be a huge revamp of a program or a huge, a totally different program that you're offering in a different area. It could be the same program, it's just a couple of different pieces that you're looking at a bit differently. So there's one more example that I'm happy to share, but I'd like to just take a moment and pause here to see if we've had any questions come up while I was going through those examples.
You know what? We're looking through, and I think Anne might have one for you. Yeah. So Kelly, there's a question. If I'm looking to develop new programs to offer in the tri-state area, where would I start and what would I ask for in relation to data?
Okay, so that's wonderful. By the way, I'm in New Jersey, so when I hear tri-state area, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to.
I think so, yes.
And really, when we're looking to develop a new program, or I'm working with a school that's looking to develop a new program, sort of they have nothing in mind, let's say, the first thing that I think about is really what might be in the news in New Jersey. There's sort of all different ways to come up with that idea and how you might target it. I'll look at what's going on in the news. You know, has there been new companies that have come into New Jersey recently? And then what I'll do is do a quick scan of the tri-state area. So I'm looking at what are the top jobs, what might be the top occupations, what might be the top industries, just a quick sort of 30,000-foot view in a very, like maybe the last 90 days, just to see what's coming up in top jobs. And I might also run a historical trend report, which looks at, let's say, the last 5 years of data as well, to see what might be a really growing field. I know, you know, not that we're all surprised that healthcare is not a growing field, but what I find very interesting in healthcare is the number of IT jobs that are growing within healthcare. And so in New Jersey in particular, we have a big pharmaceutical area in New Jersey, and you can kind of see the difference in, you know, healthcare jobs in relation even to pharmaceuticals that have been changing over time. So I'll do that sort of more larger view scan to see if anything pops out as outliers. And I'll also use anything that I've heard lately in the news to maybe run specific searches by. Or I may also use, let's say I have a really wonderful program, but I'm trying to figure out how to make that more current. I could even start off with maybe looking at that, at some information in regards to that program. So it might be employers that I know my students have gone to. It may be just looking at jobs in particular occupational type groups that would be related to that particular program to determine what the employers are in my area that are hiring and what their needs might look like. I like to get down to skill data as quickly as I can, I have to say, because I think what is really interesting in terms of job posting data is that job titles and occupations tend to give you a very broad view. And, you know, there's no standard out there. So one company may call a job one thing and the same job at another company may be titled something else. But skill sets tend to be similar across the board. So when you can really take a look quickly at a grouping or an industry and what their skill sets are, it helps you tweak that program or update that program.
Excellent. Great. There was a question. Where is the best place to find local, state, or county data?
Usually, I mean, within our Burning Glass tool, we can definitely look at data that within a county or within a region locally. I would say in terms of state data, you're usually going to be going to like your workforce office within the state. So you've got local WIBs that'll have a lot of data on your regional areas or your county areas if you're focused on something like that. And then of course you've got your state Department of Labor data, and I would never discount the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, although it doesn't go down to a county level, you can still get a metropolitan statistical area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Kelly, does Burning Glass have any annual reports that are related to maybe the top 100 new jobs or the top 100 kind of growth areas, top skills, any kind of data that can either be purchased or is available?
You know, that is a great idea, actually, that I'm going to throw back to my research department. We usually publish reports topically, like our liberal arts report or an internship report that we published a couple of months ago. And again, I'm happy to provide anyone with these reports, but they are also available on our website under the research tab. The internships report was really interesting because we looked at typical internships, and I think what was most surprising to our research team was that the skill sets for these internship positions were a lot higher, a higher level than we expected them to be. And we really lay out all of the different skills that we're seeing in the internships in that report. So that's another great report to look at. But we do offer custom research. So, you know, you can either have access, a lot of schools will purchase access of our Labor Insight database, a subscription-based access where they can run reports on those top 100 jobs or what have you, or they can also contract with us to do that particular work or provide a report on their, you know, location of interest.
Excellent. And there was another question. Can you address more of the limitations of state U.S. government-provided data as compared to big data? Or as
Of
compared,
course.
sorry, as compared to burning glass data. So I think what the person is looking for is, can you talk about the difference between what you provide and maybe that information that's already out there?
Sure, no problem. I would say that there's two really major differences that I come across. One being the time frame of the data. So, traditionally BLS data can run about 1 to 3 years behind, depending on the year, because it's really based more so on current employment. And so they have to gather that information in more of a census format. So it just takes a little bit longer to gather the data.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, secondly, it's the granularity of detail that you can go to within real-time data. So when we're looking at job posting data and the way that we're reading job posting data, we can get down to those skills and things like that. If you're looking at state Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor statistics data, they tend to fall at basically that occupation level. And sometimes those occupations are just a little outdated or too broad to really get a good picture of what's going on in a particular job or within a particular skill set, let's say.
Excellent. And the follow-up question is, what should we be aware of when reviewing government data? Anything else to add? I think you touched on that.
Sure. I mean, I think there's never, I also want to be clear that I don't really think there's one answer when it comes to data.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we tend to be inundated with the amount that's available. But I really do believe that the standard data that educators have been using for a number of years now is really great data. It's just that there is this missing piece of the puzzle that real-time data sort of fits into and helps us just close that gap in terms of us making a decision that's a really valid decision. I don't really necessarily think there's a drawback to using that kind of data. I just am very focused on making sure that folks that are using data in general in education to make a decision have a really good picture of everything that's provided. So there's, what you get out of Bureau of Labor Statistics, of course, offers projections as well. So there's a lot of great comparisons that you can make from real-time data to what any state or the government is offering, and back and forth. It just helps you round out that picture and I think make a better decision.
Excellent. Another question, do you have any colleges where the Career Services or the Alumni Association are utilizing your data for job placement and, I guess, career services?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually we do. I've been talking a lot about the data that we provide, but we also have been getting a question. I think the question started coming in a couple of years ago, actually, that said, wow, this data is really great and it's helping us get our programs in line. And sort of the next step of the equation is, well, how do we figure out a way to get this in the hands of students and parents that are making these decisions on their education path and their career path and getting a job and all that good stuff? And so we started work on developing a tool that would be directly available. So we have a number of alumni groups, career services groups, et cetera, that are not only, some of them are actually using this particular data tool, the Labor Insight tool, to pull data out of. Maybe they want to send a list of jobs to someone that's graduating, or even professors will have access to give lists of jobs to students. And then they also now have the availability to utilize our student access tool, which I think just does such a great job. We can actually take the programs, the degrees, certifications, whatever you're offering to students, and we can map those out to occupations and jobs so they can do their own sort of analysis, a very simple analysis on what jobs look like based on a particular degree.
Excellent. Kelly, there was another question. Are you able to account for a single job posted across multiple websites so demand for a certain occupation or skill is not inflated?
Oh, that's a great question, and I should have mentioned that earlier. Thank you for bringing that up. We have what we call when in terms of job postings is deduplication. So
Right.
that just means that exactly that, where we only want to count a job like that once. We do a lot of custom research as well, and anytime anyone would be using this type of data to make a decision, if it was a skewed set of data, that just throws everybody off. So we have layers of deduplication algorithms in place that are reading through to find out if one job is listed more than once. We only want that job in our database once. There is, it's not perfect, so I don't want anyone to think that any technology out there is 100% perfect. But in terms of, we've had a couple third parties look at this, and they've determined that we are at about an 11% plus or minus in terms of our deduplication, and the closest out there beyond us is at 69%, so it sounds like to me we're doing a pretty good job.
Absolutely. Great. Feel free to drop in with any other questions if people have other questions. Kelly, one of the questions I had was actually related to what are the top 2 or 3 requests for data that you get from colleges and universities as far as kind of the most popular things that you're trying to help them assess or understand?
In terms of topics, you mean?
Yes.
I would say cybersecurity is the largest right now.
Right.
Health IT jobs, which I also mentioned, we're getting a lot of requests on that, even at the master's level. So that's sort of a big topic right now. And I would say the last one would really be more STEM related.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of comes in at all levels. I know here we're probably, it sounds like we probably have more 4-year university and colleges on the phone, but we do get a lot of requests at the 4-year level and the 2-year level in regards to STEM jobs.
And Kelly, you mentioned STEM, right? So science, technology, engineering, and math?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Are there other?
Some of us now are moving towards the new STEAM.
I know. Throw in the arts. Absolutely. Great. If there are any other questions, you're welcome to send those in. This webinar recording will be provided tomorrow as far as a follow-up, along with some of the resources that Kelly mentioned. We are super happy and pleased to have Burning Glass as a partner of Converge. I think that they offer a tremendous amount of data in relation to helping really shape the strategy for your institution, from academic program offerings to really mapping and matching your alumni with great skills and great career services. There was one more